Welcome to the Let Me Be Free podcast. My name is Jackie.
And my name is Alwynn.
We're two sisters from Ireland living in Australia, navigating our healing journeys together, and this is our podcast, Let Me Be Free.
Welcome back, Alwynn, my beautiful sister. How are you?
I am exhausted and beaten down and drained and looking forward to this podcast episode.
Well, I expect that today you're going to want to talk about Shay getting kicked out of daycare. When you sent me that, when there was all the lead up to that, where you were having the meetings with the daycare and stuff, I remember actually thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I wonder could he get kicked out of daycare?" And then I thought, no kid gets kicked out of daycare. That's so silly.
Honestly, Jack, I think it's just my life. Like, it's just only I could have a child that will get kicked out of daycare. Like even even before it had happened, like, this is the sad fucking state of affairs is I was going, you look at other people's kids and you're like, wow, they're a bit crazy, wow, they're really pushing the boundaries. And then I was like, oh, Shay's bad, but he's not that bad. Not one of those kids that seemed to be cray-cray got kicked out of daycare. Shay got kicked out of daycare. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it's like, it's that perception of what's happening in your own reality is like, what are the chances? But honestly, like, I feel like these last few weeks and months have been such a shit show that, like, normally for the podcast episodes, I haven't really been able to. We did our last one, obviously, which was the first one that we did back. And before that, it was just so hard to get on and do the podcast episodes and everything. Everything was just so full on. And it was really interesting because obviously I have Shay at home with me right now. And I was just like, how am I going to record a podcast when I've Shay at home and I've got so much stuff going on? And interestingly enough, this podcast episode, I was just saying to Rob yesterday, I was like, I can't wait to record it. I was like, I need to speak. I need to talk about this. Like, for me, the group, the Let Me Be Free group, was a place where I could offload. It was a place where I could share what was going on for me, a place where I guess what was happening to me was made real, or what I was experiencing was made real. And without having the group to share on, and without having the podcast to speak on, and without having anything really external, I feel like I actually haven't even processed or dealt with or acknowledged how fucking hard these last few weeks and months have been. And also everything that even happened and the lead up to it and how I felt about it and the experience of it. But I also I know that there's so much within this conversation that many people will get out of it, whether not even just for children and daycare, but I guess, I don't know, I just feel like there will be a lot that we can all get out of it.
Mm-hmm. So bring us back to before Shay got kicked out and what was happening.
So when Shay started daycare, he was really good. They were saying he was really calm and relaxed, and yeah, they were saying, oh, he's such a lovely little boy, and yada yada yada. And then what started happening was he just so in his daycare class, there was a good few boys who were very boisterous, I guess you would call them. They were very boisterous. Like, you'd go in and they'd be throwing stuff around and they'd be, either hitting each other, or it was a chaotic environment. And so, when Shay started, hitting and spitting and stuff, and essentially not doing what the educators wanted him to do, or hitting other children when they took his toys, I kind of wasn't that surprised because, there were so many other kids in there that were really dysregulated and stuff. I was kind of like, okay, I'm sure he'll make it. He'll be okay, and he'll right himself. Um, but I think I don't know where it shifted. Um, and it's kind of hard to know where to start or where to begin because he started um doing some behaviors like hitting and um spitting sometimes, and they were concerned about that. But what happened was it seemed to have taken a more, and I would say sinister, because the the educators, when I would go in to pick up Shay, they started kind of relaying that they were concerned about him, concerned about his behaviors. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, like, he's obviously struggling with something, whatever. But I'm I'm just trying to piece it all together. Like I think I think at one point I was coming in and obviously Shay was struggling and there was all this stuff happening. And again, I still kind of thought that all of the kids were struggling. Like, I've seen a lot of the other kids and I was thinking, oh, if anyone's going to get kicked out of daycare, they will get kicked out. The other kids. And then the educators then started saying to me that they wanted to start a behavioral plan for Shay. And I was like, okay. And I started to get a bit more concerned. And obviously now my core wound is that, I'm not a good enough mother, that I fucked them up for life, that I've traumatized them. And here was this, experience, or this thing where Shay was exhibiting these behaviors, um and they wanted to make a plan and support and whatever. Um and then it didn't get better. And then it turned a bit more, as I said, sinister, because they started saying that they were concerned there were some red flags. And red flags now for me are like, it's just, you know, they were saying that he was saying things like I want to hurt other people. I like hurting other people. When he would hurt other kids, um, you know, he also said that Bobby hurts me, and Bobby says I liked that it's good to hurt people. And he was saying that one of his other friends, one of the other girls that visits us, that she hurts as well. And they were really, the educators were very much kind of looking at me and communicating to me with the energy of what's going on at home, you know, what's going on. This behavior isn't normal. There must be something that's happening to create this language that he was talking about, whatever. And yeah, I feel like I'm waffling about. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
Well, that's what happened. You're just explaining what happened. Then they had you in for a few meetings, didn't you? Didn't they? You had to go in and have one-on-one
well,
meetings with them.
well, I guess before that, like, you know, when I talked to one of the educators, she was, yeah, really concerned, and she was like, um, and I said to her that, she was kind of saying to me essentially that she was like, you seem to have it all together, so I can't imagine that it'd be something from home. And I had said to her that, I did have mental health issues when Bobby and Shay were younger. And I said he definitely could be presenting some things, some issues around that. And also, so he was saying that there was this voice inside of his head, or this voice, or this boy or girl, or this thing inside of him that was telling him to hurt other people. So this was another part of the real concern, that he was wanting to hurt other people, and there was a voice inside of him saying to hurt other people. And also, this was something that I had experienced at home with him. Like, we were in bed and he had said, "Oh, I don't." He was kind of talking to himself and he was saying, "I don't want to hurt mom. I don't want to hurt mom." And I said, "You don't have to hurt me, darling." And he was like, "Yeah, but it's saying that to hurt you, and I don't want to hurt you." And so I myself was like getting a bit concerned, like, what the fuck is going on here, And so obviously the daycare said, similar. And then they were kind of saying, would you consider psychologists and all this kind of stuff? And so I feel like something snapped inside of me. I feel like there was the day that I went in and, they had kind of said that they were just kind of saying that something wasn't right, whatever. And I was like, I just, I just felt like something just snapped inside of me because I was like, I can't do this. Like, I had Bobby and Shay home with me for so many years, and I had just started work, and I had just started to have a bit of my own life and a bit of my own freedom. And the educator, I said to her that I had considered homeschooling him before because I was saying maybe it's the environment because I do a lot of conscious parenting practices at home, um, which should be helping him to feel safe, but he's still really dysregulated here. And she was like, well, if if you're not struggling financially, that would be good. If you could maybe keep him home, maybe do some homeschooling or something for a bit. And there was just this part of me that I guess I felt broken that I'm never going to have my own space or my own time, or that maybe I just don't deserve it. You know, I'm meant to be a mother and I'm meant to give up all of myself and I'm meant to sacrifice everything for them. And my kid was struggling at daycare and I should have been the good mother and be able to keep him home. But all I could think in that moment was the last time I had my kids home, I had a mental breakdown. Like I suffered so much. I have just started getting my life on track and you're now saying that, like it just felt so unfair. It just felt so hard for me to accept and acknowledge that I guess it was a war inside of me. The mom in me that wanted to protect my son and keep him safe and bring him home so that he knew that he was safe and loved with me. And the part of me that wanted something more for myself, that didn't want to be a stay at home mom, that wanted to work, that wanted to have something for me, and it was a bit of a fight inside. And so I remember that day I had gone to a friend and I just cried and I just was blank. And then at the same time, then Rob, my husband, Rob, he also was having his own experience to it because, he was really feeling this as a reflection on him as a father, because fathers are meant to be this, in inverted commas, disciplinarian. The father is meant to guide the son into how to exist within the world. And, Shay was being severely disrespectful at daycare to the older people. He wasn't listening. You couldn't tell him anything, and at home as well, you can't. We couldn't tell him anything. He wasn't. He was pushing the boundaries. He was breaking things. He was really, really difficult and really, really challenging. And so Rob also was so struggling so much with this. I guess this fear. One on one side it was the fear of have I raised a child to be disrespectful? But also the other side of it is Rob saw a lot of himself in Shay, a lot of his own pain in Shay, a lot of his own struggles in Shay. And so it was a really hard time for both of us. So after that, then I had to just really sit with it and try and figure out what I was going to do. And every time I went into daycare, there was a new incident report. And in the incident report, the way that they were talking about him, it was just very much the language was just, you know, really, I guess, it wasn't very gentle. It was just kind of like, he has no empathy. He showed no remorse. He 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 hit the educator, and when she asked him to stop, he didn't care. He just did it again. And I was like, yeah, but it's not that he doesn't care. He's struggling. You're not seeing him. You're not seeing that he's struggling. You're seeing his behaviors. And so it was really hard. Every day I was having anxiety when I would drop him off, and every day I had anxiety when I was picking him up because I was afraid that, this was going to be another bad day and he was going to have done something worse, or the fact that he was even struggling himself, I was struggling with. And then so they called me in for the meeting, and I went in then, and I really had to just kind of decide on what it is that I wanted, and what it is that I needed, and what it is that I believe is happening for Shay. And what I recognized was my go to was to blame myself. It's always been my go to. There must be something I'm doing wrong. I'm not good enough. And I felt like I was going in there to be told off, that kind of way. And so when I sat back, I just really reevaluated, and I was like, I am doing everything that I can do at home to support him. And he obviously doesn't feel safe in that environment for whatever reason. Um, and the language that he was communicating, like I'm going to hurt you, like he said to a little girl, I'm going to go into your house at night and hurt you or something, you know? And so there was this fear inside me that something was happening in my own house, or something was happening to him that I wasn't aware of. That kind of way. Like I had this fear that, when they said about Bobby and Bobby hits him and Bobby hurts him, it just, none of that was lining up to what I was experiencing at home. Bobby and him were getting on really well. They sometimes fight, but in general, they're very good with each other. And I was like, am I missing something? And I thought about us and our own sexual abuse. I was like, am I missing something that's happening to him that like, could Bobby be hurting him without when I'm not looking? Could someone else be hurting him when I'm not looking? Like all of these doubts and fears. And so, anyways, I went in for the meeting, and essentially I was just really upfront. I said, I have this trauma, and he has had some experiences where he would have struggled with some trauma, and like when in his earlier years. And I said, but right now at home, I'm doing everything that I can do to support him, and I can't do any more. And I understand that here he is exhibiting all these behaviors, but there's nothing that I believe you're going to be able to do to help him with that, because I believe whether it's the environment or it's that he doesn't feel safe in his own body. And so I just said, we've got three options. Option one, I was like, I can try and come in and see if I can regulate him and help him to feel safe in the environment, um, and any of the other kids or whatever while I'm there, see if that helps. Two, we can try and change rooms to see if it's the room. Or three, I'll take him out of daycare and see if I can find somewhere else. And I was like, I love this daycare, and I think that you've all been really wonderful trying to help him and support him, but I know what he's like. And when he's dysregulated like that, and when he doesn't feel safe, there's nothing that you can do to stop him. What I do is I turn him around, and I call it the squeeze. So I hold him in my arms firmly, and I just tell him I love him and he's safe, and I wait for all the big emotions to pass. But at least then he's not trashing the house. He can't, like, so his head is down low, so he can't headbutt me. He can't spit on me because his body is away from me. But I was like, I don't want you to do that, because if you're going to do that, you have to do that from a place of love, from a place of gentleness. And I can't trust that your educators are going to be able to do that in a safe way. Because if you're doing it from a place of anger, he's not going to feel safe. He's going to feel trapped and contained. You need to do it from a place of love so that he feels safe. And so I don't think that you can, really do that. But I said I'd come in and I would try and volunteer for a bit and see if that helps. So I did that, and it didn't work. He was more upset when I was leaving. And so I was like, okay, I just felt so disheartened. I just felt like I was in a losing battle. And I just, I just felt like, you know, I just felt like I was always failing. Like I now have a child that's kicked out of daycare. Well, he's not kicked out. He wasn't kicked out at this point. But like, I just felt like I was giving it everything. And I've been giving this everything. I've been giving my kids everything. And I'm still a failure. I've still fucked up, you know? Um, and so that was grand. 2 days later, we gave it a few days. 2 days later, then they had asked me to come in for another meeting, and something had come up that day that I couldn't go in for the meeting. And they had sent me an email saying that they just couldn't support him, and that he was given 2 days notice. That you know the educators didn't want to work with him because they didn't want to work in that room because he was aggressive and he was whatever, and the other kids weren't safe. And so essentially, they gave me 2 days notice that he was kicked out. And I responded and I was like, thanks. Like I was like, I'm really grateful that you've made that decision, because if it's that bad, I do not want him to be there. And he's obviously really unsafe if you feel like you have to pick him out. And I do believe that they did really try. So that was it. That was his last day, and I took him home, and there's
How has
loads
it
more.
been since? How has it been since then? Since you have had him at home full time?
Um, I just
Hmm.
feel really scattered today, you know. So I'm trying to just piece it all together. I guess, okay, so when I got the email that he was being kicked out, initially there was dread, and there was sadness, and there was anger, and there was frustration, and there was fear, because one, I'm going to have him at home now. Two, I don't know if anyone else is going to take him. Three, I can't work. So there was all of that. But what I felt was probably more stronger than the fear and the doubt and the dread was was gratitude. I just I was like, this is hard, but it's happening for me. There must be a reason that this has happened right now. And I'm going to choose to believe that what is going to come of this is going to be so much better for me and Shay and Rob and Bobby. And so I'm not going to um I allowed myself to be sad about it, but I didn't allow myself to sink into a hole, because I really was like, there must be a reason. Like, I know that this is going to be good in the end. I just have to get through this next period. And so,
I remember the day actually that you were talking about. You had spent the whole day, I think, just trying to like think of a reason that this might be happening. And in fairness to you, you were like one of the most positive people I know, because even in the worst situations, you can always come up with like at least 10 reasons that this might be happening, that this might be good for you in the long term, or why this might need to happen now. And you were struggling to come up with anything. And I think by the end of the day, I think you said something like, of, well, you know what, this will be good. At least I'll have something to talk about on the podcast. I was just like, wow, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel if the only thing you can come up with is that you have something to talk about on the podcast.
well, it wasn't even that actually. The other part of that, what we were saying was, I feel like so often we so say for example, you with parents, right? Parents will always say, "Oh, this child, they're really difficult or whatever," right? This is the way parents go. And then another parent will go, "Oh yeah, in their head, yeah, but they're not as bad as my child," you know. And
Yeah.
so what I was saying to you is this actually is pretty good, because a lot of the times if I say to people, say on the podcast, oh, my kid was struggling in daycare or they were difficult or whatever, they'll say, oh, yeah, that's your perception. But no, when you have a child that's kicked out of daycare, a lot of people are going to say, oh, okay, my child isn't that bad. So, like, as in, there's, there's there's hope. There's hope for their own children, because if their child hasn't gone kicked out of daycare, they're obviously not exhibiting as bad behaviors as my child was, and I could
Hmm.
still find hope for him. But what, like, with the when I like yeah when I got the news that he was kicked out, I just was like, yeah, there has to be a purpose to it, and there has to be a reason. And we so I kind of was like, I sat with it, and we decided to go to play therapist, um which was which ended up being last week. Me and Rob ended up going to the play therapist just to talk to her ourselves.
So Ollie, before he actually got kicked out, when they first started bringing to your attention the issues that were the behavioral issues that were happening with Shay, at that stage, did you try to get him help in any form?
Yeah. So I had booked in the play therapist weeks and weeks and weeks ago. But she first of all, she hadn't gotten back to me, but then she did get back to me, and then she couldn't fit him in, so she referred me on to someone else, and then that person didn't get back to me, and so went back to the initial person, and then the initial person sent me on to the other person again. And so, like, what should have probably been me seeing a play therapist about 8 weeks ago ended up that I
Mm,
only saw her last week. Like,
yeah.
oh, we got the ball rolling weeks and weeks ago, but it ended up that one of the ladies had an emergency, so she actually couldn't take on any more clients. And so the initial lady who we were referred to said that she would just fit us in and squeeze us in because of you know, the need, and because we were kind of being um, shuffled about from one person to another.
I
Um,
think though that
we,
is in itself one of the problems that can happen. It's like, you know, behavioral issues can be identified, be it by a daycare or a school or a club or some other place that that child attends. Um, and of course, the suggestion is, I'm sure the daycare suggested, you bring Shay to some kind of, get him some kind of help with that. But the reality is that there's a lot of the services right now that you have to wait quite a while to get that initial appointment. Like I don't know specifically for children's therapists and stuff like that, but certainly for adult therapists, you often have to go on a wait list or call 20 people to see if there's availability. And, it's not, there's just, from what I can see, there's not that many people, there's not enough people out there to meet the demand. So part of the issue as well, I think that I'm sure a lot of people struggle with, especially for kids uh with things like ADHD, or if they're on the spectrum, or like those services for sure are really struggling to keep up with the amount of children who need help with that. So yeah, I think in when I was thinking about this morning, I was like, I wonder if it would have made a difference when they initially brought those issues to you and you had contacted that play therapist, and that play therapist was like, yeah, sure, I'll fit you in tomorrow. And then you're able to go back to the daycare and be like, yep, he's working with a play therapist now. This is some of the things that we're doing. Um, yeah, obviously it was not meant to be in your case.
yeah,
For whatever reason, the universe wants it to be that you are home with Shay right now. It wants it to be this way. But it did cross my mind how different things could have been had the support been available to you straight away.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it would have been different. It would have been very different if we had gotten that play therapist on board straight away. But as you said, I definitely don't think that it was meant to be for many reasons. Um, but you know, I guess backtracking what I want to say and what I think is very important for me to say was when I was going in for that meeting with the educators or whatever, the manager of the daycare. I went in with one very, very strong foundational, I guess, piece of information. And that was a belief that my son is inherently beautiful and amazing and kind and loving, and that there is nothing wrong with him. But there is something that is causing him to feel, you know, unsafe or whatever that may be. Like, and the reason why I need to say that is, you know, it's so so often, especially when we have kids, it's like we're always trying to figure out what's wrong with them. You know, are they just bad, or are they just naughty, or are they did I raise them like this? And I think that the hardest thing for us as parents to do is to see and find the love for our children when, especially when they are at their least lovable,
Hmm.
especially when they were at their least, like, because even at home, Shay was so difficult. Like, we were having such a hard time with him at home as well. But what I recognized was I could see that as a reflection of actually what was happening in daycare rather than what was happening at home. Because I'm always quick to say, oh, it must be something we're doing here. But once I then was able to kind of separate them and see, no, I'm actually supporting him really well at home. He must be struggling so much at daycare that it's that that's bringing it home. But, you know, I guess what I want people to hear is that if you have a child that is exhibiting behaviors, whatever type of behavior that may be, if they seem naughty or bad or whatever it is that they may be, I think that the greatest gift that we can give them as parents is to see beyond the behavior and believe that they are inherently good at their core, because no one else is going to see them as good and beautiful and innocent if we as their parents can't. If we can't love them when they're at their worst, no one is going to love them. You know, no one else is going to love your child when they're kicking you or spitting on you or whatever. And I know that that's a hard thing to love, but I think it's more a case of when I went into that meeting, I was very, very concrete that they were not going to be allowed, or I wasn't going to allow them or myself to paint Shay in any other light than a child who is struggling with something. That he is not bad, that what he is doing is not bad. It is a result of some internal conflict that is going on within him that we need to support him with, you know, rather than this, fear that he's bad or whatever. And so, yeah, so when we start, so I booked in the the play therapist, and I said, okay, we've got that booked in, so that was good. And I also brought him to the doctor because he was struggling to hear us, and so I brought him to the doctor, and it turned out that he has glue ears, which is like it's like cotton wool in his ears, and he's got problems with his adenoids and problems with his tonsils, and he's not breathing effectively and not sleeping right. And so all of that would have been also an accumulation of what would be resulting in the behaviors. Um, but yeah, so then
So
having
so so glue ears is when there's a buildup of um fluids in the internal ear cavity, so it makes it sound like you're underwater, yeah?
yes, that's it. Yeah,
And then the problems with his adenoids, is that what it is?
yeah,
Adenoids?
adenoids. Essentially,
Um,
it's this whole ears, nose, and throat. all of that system for Shay isn't working.
It's not working correctly, and so it's making it difficult for him to breathe, which is also a part of regulation. He's
Yeah,
struggling to hear properly, which is going to make him extremely frustrated because, you know, he's living in a world where other people are living a different reality to him. And when he's not responding in the way that the people expect him to respond because they've asked him to do something and he hasn't maybe heard what they've said, and now they're frustrated, and so now he's frustrated, and I can completely understand how that would be so difficult for him. And even when he came down to the land and he was asleep on the bed beside me, when he came down to my property, um, I could hear him breathing so heavily and struggling with his breathing while he was asleep. And I was looking at him thinking, I don't think he's getting a good night's sleep like that because
yeah,
he's really struggling. It sounded like there was a lot of mucus in his
yeah,
nose, and like he had a really bad cold, but he didn't. So, yeah, when he's not getting enough sleep, that's also, of course, going to affect his behavior. So, yeah, I think it's so good that the doctor was able to, the ENT was able to check him out and
oh no,
see
well,
him.
we've just got the doctor now, so that was the doctor, only the doctor, and so we
Oh, it
have
was
to wait
only
till
the
the
doctor who said that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he
So
was
now
just
you've
saying from
got,
all this, we've got the ENT booked in, yeah.
yeah, okay, great.
But yeah, like that's exactly it. And the thing is when you are a parent who is dealing with your own trauma, there's very little capacity for anything else. And
Yeah,
so for me, I knew, like Shay's been dribbling now for a while. He's 4, and I knew there was something going on. And we both, myself and Rob, did definitely see a little bit every so often with the hearing. He would, he would not hear us and stuff. But the reality was I was so fucking at capacity with everything that was going on within me and Bobby and Rob and Shay and Daycare that I was like, that has to go on the long finger. Like I can't deal with that right now. I can't get that sorted
yeah.
right now. But I guess
That's
again,
it.
that was a
That's a
really
huge thing though, because I feel like that's something that I hear a lot of parents beat themselves up about. Like, oh, well, I should have gotten them checked earlier. I knew
yeah,
there was something, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of guilt trip themselves a lot about it. So the fact that you can kind of say, look, I did not have capacity, you know,
yeah. And I don't
I
regret it.
yeah,
I
I
wouldn't I
absolutely
wouldn't
love
go
my
back.
child and I do whatever I can for them, but I can only do so much as I have capacity to do. My
Yeah,
battery runs empty and I don't have anything more to give, and that is just the reality of my life.
yeah. And that was exactly it. Like, and the truth is, knowing what I know now, I still wouldn't have changed anything. I couldn't. The daycare had said to me about the dribbling and would you get him checked out? And I was like, yeah. And I remember looking at her going, I'm barely getting through right now. I do want to do what you're saying, not fully comprehending that you're speaking to me right now. I understand there might be a problem. Can't do it. Like, and and it's just that's just the reality of it. It's I could only have capacity when I had capacity, and it just turns out that by the time Shay got kicked out of daycare, I was like, okay, I have capacity now, um, and it all felt right. Like getting his ears checked, getting all of those appointments, like, and it was full on. It was the school holidays, and I was booking him in for appointments and doctor um, and just to look at daycares and the whatever you call them, the play therapist. And yeah, going to appointments is severely draining. it's really, really draining going to appointments for kids and stuff like that. And you really have to have that extra bit of capacity. And I guess if you know that it's in the long run going to pay off, and I think that's the thing for me. I'm so grateful that they kicked him out of daycare, because them kicking him out of daycare really made me stop and go, okay, he's kicked out of daycare now. This is obviously an issue. What do I need to do to support him? And so I was like, okay, I'll book in the doctor, book in the ENT, book in the play therapist, and get these balls rolling. And I know that the child that I'm going to have in a few months' time is not going to be this child. And it's not that there's anything wrong with this child. I love Shay, but he is definitely struggling. Like, he's struggling with everything that you just mentioned. And he's also struggling with, when we went to the play therapist, that was an incredible experience. Like,
That was just you and Rob who went, isn't it?
yeah, so just me and Rob. And, you know, one of the things for me is I find it hard to trust. Um, I find it hard to trust therapists. And, like, I know how getting a bad therapist can fuck things up so much, or how getting someone who doesn't know what they're talking about can
Mm-hmm.
make you doubt so much. And so for a long time, I really feared getting any support for, especially even the boys, because it's like, if I pick the wrong person and they make my life harder, I just don't think I have capacity for that. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
capacity for someone to make my life harder by fucking things up more. And so we went to see this lady on a referral. One of the other moms, her son went to her, and so I was like, okay, perfect. And I went, and you know what? For the first time since I started healing, I really sat across from someone that I would trust with my own life. She knew that much. She was so in alignment with everything that I do, everything that, everything that I thought. Um, and she was able to really help me understand and view Shay from a different angle. Like, I was thinking about, obviously, the mental breakdown that I had, and how that would have been really challenging for him, and how aggressive I was. But it was fascinating because, she asked me about when I was pregnant with Shay, and she was like, how was your connection to him then? And I was like, well, at that point, I had just learned that I was sexually abused when I fell pregnant with Shay. And so that year when I was pregnant with
You
Shay,
you have to rephrase that, Ollie. You said you were sexually abused when you fell pregnant with Shay.
oh right, sorry. I was I had I had remembered my historical sexual abuse from a child after I had fallen pregnant with Shay.
Let
Um,
me do that
and
again
so,
because you just did
yeah,
it again.
okay,
You
do it.
re you had memories resurface of childhood sexual abuse that you experienced as a child. When you were pregnant with Shay, those memories came up.
Yeah, that's it. And I was just saying to her, like, that year, or that 9 months that I was pregnant with Shay, I was in a tornado. Like, I had just realized about sexual abuse. I had a toddler who was now coming into those terrible twos, and I was struggling with that. And also, I was like, my parents came over to visit, and I didn't know at the time that they were a part of the abuse. And I was so disconnected. I barely even knew I was pregnant. Whereas with Bobby, my first son, I was so connected to him. I would talk to him all the time. I would tell him I love him. I would, sing to him. There was this,
When you were pregnant with Bobby, you would talk to him and
yeah,
sing
when
to
I was
him.
pregnant, yeah, when I was pregnant with Bobby, I was so connected, and I was so present with him. And then even in the first year, even though I had so much trauma that was under the surface, I was still more connected to him. I was there with him. I was able to form that attachment with Bobby. Whereas when I was pregnant with Shay, I I wasn't really able to acknowledge the pregnancy or connect with him really on a deeper level. And then when I had Shay, obviously 3 months in, then we found out about the rest of the abuse, and that included dad and everything else. And I obviously was mentally unstable then for a long period of time. And she said, she was like, the window of attachment for children is generally, I guess conception, but birth to 6 months. And she said, you know, because of what you were experiencing, you weren't able to create that attachment. You weren't able to connect with him and form that safe attachment, form that safe bond, because you didn't have that capacity. You were just trying to get through every day. And so, I had said to her that Shay has reoccurring nightmares of being locked in prison or locked in jail or me locked in jail. And he has dreams that I die. And she was like, yeah, that all makes sense. She was like, he he is he doesn't have a safe attachment, and so he's always afraid that he's going to lose you. He doesn't feel like you're going to stay around. He doesn't feel like he's anchored to you. And so the dreams of him being locked in prison is separation. It's separation from you. The dreams of you being locked in prison, he's separated from you. The dreams of you dying, he's separated from you. And so he's just trying to, his subconscious is trying to communicate to him that this is a big fear. And then he goes to daycare and he's separated from you. Um, and so she was saying, like, you know, it's just about reforming um, and recreating that safe attachment so that he can go out into the world and feel stable and feel secure. But right now, he's just constantly terrified that he's going to lose me or that I'm going to leave him. And also, she said, when that period of time, when I have my mental breakdown, I said to her I was very suicidal. And she said, children can feel when their parents, they can feel what their parents feel. And so she was like, they would have felt that you were having thoughts of leaving. You were having thoughts of committing suicide. And again, that would have been rupturing and creating a deep-seated fear that they're not safe in the world. That you're going to leave them. And whether that's a physical leaving or the death or whatever. And so it was just really fascinating. It was just so fascinating to be able to picture it from a different angle, um, and see, I guess, that there's a way through and a way forward. And since then, it was as if this door opened because me and Rob had gone to see the play therapist, um, and it really made sense to me about that attachment wound. And since then, Shay has been so vocal about all of it. Like, I didn't say anything to him about the attachment or the fear or whatever, but in the days following that, every day he was saying, "Mom, I'm afraid that you're going to leave me on the side of the road and not come back to me. Mom, I'm afraid that bad men are going to take me at nighttime and I'm never going to see you again. Mom, I'm afraid that you're going to die." Rob went to his men's group and he said, "Where's Dad?" And I was like, "Oh, he's just gone to his appointment or group or whatever." And he said, "I hope he's not dead." And I was like, "Yeah, he'll be okay, darling. He's going to come back." And so since he wasn't saying all this stuff before,
Mm-hmm.
me and Rob had that session with the play therapist, but it was as if this energetic opening had been created from going to the play therapist that enables Shay to speak and vocalize what he's been struggling with all of this time. And the other thing that I recognized was having Shay at home with me was really, really hard. Like, I felt like he was sucking the life out of me and I was suffocating. And since I went to the play therapist, I was again able to see it from a different angle. He was so and is so insecure in our attachment that he doesn't leave me alone. He's like, Mom, 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 do you want to play with me? Mom, will you do this? Even though I might spend connection time with him, even though we do stuff together, it's constant. You know, Mom, are you still here? I can feel him asking me, Mom, are you still here? Mom, are you okay? Mom, are you going to leave me now? Mom, are you going to leave me now? Mom, Mom, Mom. And then if Rob tries to take him or Rob tries to put him to bed, he won't have a bar of it. You know, he'll scream and he'll kick and he'll be so angry and aggressive. And I just, since that play therapy session, I recognize how much he is struggling and how much a lot of what we are both struggling with in our relationship as mother and son is due to the fact that he doesn't feel safe in this relationship. And then because I feel so suffocated by him, because he just never seems to get enough of me, I then shut down and I block him out. I just am like, nope, I just shut down and I can't deal with him anymore. And I just get angry. And then that again furthers the insecure attachment. And so we just keep on going around in these circles. I'm getting exhausted because he's sucking the life out of me because he just keeps needing more. And he's not getting what he needs because he needs that safe attachment, you know? And so, you know, there's such great beauty and hope in the fact that this has all happened because me and Shay are going to get to have that deep relationship, and Rob as well. Rob's going to be doing some play therapy sessions with him because also, you know, in those first few months and that first year, Rob also couldn't form that safe attachment with him because I was having a mental breakdown. You know, Rob was struggling, and so he wasn't able to create that safe attachment either. And so Rob also is going to be doing the sessions with him so that they can work on their attachment. And so, you know, when you think about it as being a negative, he got kicked out of daycare. I believe it's going to be the absolute best thing that's ever happened. And not only that, I was looking at other daycares and, you know, I booked him in to view a few. And I just cancelled them all because none of them felt right to me, except for one. One felt right. And I said, oh, I'll go and see that one and we'll see how it goes. Went to see it and it was just the most beautiful little daycare with like 15 kids in it. And they're all different ages. And there's two Irish girls that lead it. And it was just energetically, I just went in there and I felt like I was at home. It was just this gentle, beautiful space. And I was kind of saying, maybe if it's the right environment, maybe Shay will feel safe. Maybe that's what he needed. Maybe what he was telling me when he was in the old daycare was that he didn't feel safe and that he wasn't going to back down. He wasn't going to shove all of his feelings into a box and conform because he knew that he wanted better. He knew that he deserved better and he wasn't going to stop until he got better. You know, he wasn't going to stop until he got kicked out of daycare and he got what he needed, you know. And so I'm very proud of him for that. I'm very proud that he didn't stop fighting, you know, that he didn't stop showing that he wasn't happy. Because yesterday, then when we went to see, I brought him for the second kind of trial day at the new daycare, and it was just so calm and so peaceful. And I said to him, okay, do you want to go now? And he was like, oh, can I eat my lunch with my friends? And I was like, sure. So he just sat there and had his lunch. And we went out to the car afterwards. And he was like, Mom, I really want this to be my daycare. Can I go here? And he hates the idea of like going to daycare or school or anything. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is what it's all about. Maybe, like you said, maybe things have to fall apart, even though it's hard and even though it's painful and even though it it can be a struggle because I'm fucking exhausted after these last few weeks and months. But maybe things have to fall apart so that one, I could prove to myself that I will always see the best in my children, even if they're at their worst. And that I will never stop fighting for them and for what they deserve. And also to trust that there is a greater plan out there. a greater guidance system, that even though this feels hard and difficult, and yeah, I feel like a victim inside of it because I've suffered so much, that maybe this is happening for the best, for the best outcome for all of us. And I know that once me and Shay and Rob go through the play therapy and he gets his ear sorted and we deal with all of the health issues, I know that he's going to be a totally different child, you know, and that'll be worth it.
And so are you going to do some play therapy sessions with Shay, and then Rob does some play therapy sessions with Shay, or do the three of you go together, and what frequency do you go to them, and how long are they, and are there, like, in those sessions, are you going to be doing specific techniques that help reestablish connection?
So from what I can, from what I've, from what Fran has told me, from the initial interview, so we will go every week. She said until she feels like we can maybe do it fortnightly or whatever. So every week initially. It's 45 minutes each week. It will be with me initially while Shay develops a safe attachment with me. And then once she feels like he's developed or is developing a safe attachment with me, then she'll consider then asking Rob to come in so that he can do those sessions as well. And what she said was, essentially, she said, the child just comes in and they play. And it seems to be this kind of, I guess, container space that it it doesn't seem like she does anything. It's like she creates the safe space so that he can play. And it seems like from what I'm understanding, it's as if, and what I've heard of play therapy before, it's as if the kids just, once they're in a safe space and they know that they're in that safe container and they understand what it is energetically or whatever, they start to play out the issues and the pain and the trauma with play. And she said what Fran had said to me and Rob, she had said that it's actually the hardest part is for the parents. She was like, to me, she had said, this is going to be hard for you. She said it is not easy work because, he's going to show what's inside of him. And I'm going to support you to hold him in that. I'm going to support you to repair and to bridge that gap. And yeah, to just, I don't know what it is that she does. I guess maybe in a few months' time we'll do a podcast on that, my experience of the play therapy.
We'll have to.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my understanding, is that she creates that safe space. And she's the guide that helps, not the child. I think that the children, once they're in that safe space, I think the children know what to do. I think they play out whatever it is that they need to play out, like whether that's, if there's abuse or if there's, from what I've heard before, they use the dolls or they use whatever toys or whatever it is to communicate a scenario that describes their feelings or their experiences to be seen and heard and felt. But again, we just have to see how that goes as time goes on.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. And so the daycare that you brought him to, because Bobby and Shay are very different children in that Bobby loves to be in amongst it. Like, he loves to be, he has a million friends around him, and he loves the daycare that he's in. The daycare, well, he's in school now, but the daycare that he and Shay were in, it's quite a big daycare. It's massive, actually. And it's amazing. Like, it was perfect for Bobby because it has everything going on, and the educators are really great, and it's got lots of outdoor area for the different ages, but it's a big, big place. and there's
Yes.
always a lot going on. Like every time I go to drop them off there or pick them up, like it is mayhem. And
Yeah.
Bobby kind of enjoys that, even though he does need to then go away and have some chill out time. Shay just seems to get overwhelmed by lots of people and crowds and lots of energy. Like he always tends to kind of, yeah, he likes to just be in his own little bubble. He doesn't want too many, like he likes playing with kids, but I think it's always been very full on. So I think the fact that you found a small daycare, I can see why that would suit him more than the other one. And yeah, hopefully, in combination with the work that you're doing with the play therapist and going to the ENT, the pediatric ENT, to get his, um, whatever needs to happen with his adenoids and tonsils and sinuses or whatever it's going on, sorted, yeah, hopefully he starts to feel safer in his body and safer in his connection with you. And I definitely think, regardless, we should, once you've done a couple of months of the play therapy with Shay, you should report back on how that is and what it's like and what's involved and how long it goes for and all those questions that I want to ask that you don't know the answers to right now.
Yes, definitely. And I'm like, I'd love to because, I'm looking forward to it as well. And to be truly honest, I feel that this play therapy is going to be as healing for me as it is for Shay.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds
Yeah.
like a lot of the work that's being done is for you, not the child.
Yeah.
Like, and it's you, like a lot. I think I think you're probably going to be more advanced than most parents going in there doing it because you
Oh,
already do a lot of stuff with the boys in terms of
yeah.
how you respond to them and how you talk to them and how they're you do so much, so I don't think it's going
Yeah.
to be as difficult for you as it might be someone who's never done any of that stuff, but still I absolutely believe that it's you doing all the work.
Yeah, definitely. And that's it. Like I'm not afraid at all of that. Like I'm so used to sitting in uncomfortable feelings and I'm so used to all of that stuff that doesn't phase me in the slightest. That's I'm so like for once I would just won't be doing it on my own. So, I'm
Hmm.
totally happy with that. And she was just saying as well that like she's like, the reality is Alwyn, she was like, you've never how are you meant to teach or create, say, a safe attachment with your child when you have never learned what a safe attachment is, or when
Yeah.
you had never had a safe attachment to your own parents? And so it's like she's teaching me how to be
Yes.
safely attached. It's like
Yeah.
it's a natural occurrence for kids. Kids
Hmm.
understand innately how to safely attach. They innately understand how to get their needs met. It's us as adults that have never learned to meet our needs or to allow others to have needs or to have a safe attachment, because for a lot of us, when we try to attach to our parents, there was there was a it was like attachment also meant pain and suffering, because we had to so often our parents were wounded and they couldn't hold that attachment. They couldn't hold that safe attachment. Um, and so, yeah, definitely, I think that there's so much that I will learn that I just don't
Hmm.
know because I've never learned it myself. And I love, why I guess I loved Fran so much was she was very much of the same ethos as me, where she was like, I believe that parents do the best that they can do with the experience and that they have had through their own childhood, And she was like, I don't believe that parents try to hurt their kids or want to hurt their kids. I believe that they just don't understand or know a different way. And this in this environment, this is my way or a way of us helping you to relearn for yourself what that is, with your children. Um, and there was something else now actually that I wanted to say. Oh, actually, yeah. One of the things that I wanted to also just say, and I know this might not be the best space to say it in, or maybe the best podcast to say it in, but I do want to say it anyways. Like, there is some practical things that when you're in this conscious parenting space and you have trauma, sometimes it's so hard to know what to do. Like, sometimes I'm like, you know, so Rob said, for example, Rob was saying to Fran that, which is the play therapist lady, he was saying, one of the things that I don't know is, like, I feel like I'm his father, and there's a certain amount of responsibility for a dad to, like, make sure that their child is not a delinquent, that they're not going to bloody end up being disrespectful, whatever. Like, I feel like I need to be in some way creating some discipline or something so that Shay doesn't turn out to be exactly what he is right now, which is very, like, dysregulated, disrespectful. He does whatever he wants. And she was just saying, you know, a child, you can discipline or try and discipline a child, but what you're trying to discipline is you're trying to change the behavior. And she was like, you can try and change the behavior all day long, but it is not going to change the child's experience, because the behavior is just a symptom of something that's going on deeper within. And so instead of looking at how can I correct Shay, it's like, how can I connect with him? How can I connect with him in this moment so that he feels safe? And Rob was like, yeah, I understand. Okay. And that's fair enough. But then when your child is throwing stuff, like when they're hitting you or they're hitting their siblings, or they're throwing, like Shay broke Rob's Wi-Fi headphones because Rob wasn't putting on the iPad fast enough for him. And he was like, where's the limit essentially? Like, where's the edge? How can I keep the house safe and keep everyone else safe while also keeping Shay safe without disciplining him? And so what I had said to her was, what I do is what I was saying earlier on is, when Shay starts to lose control now, the best way I can describe it is, it's as if he has all of these big emotions and he just doesn't know what to do with them. He's aggressive, he's spitting, he's kicking, he's breaking stuff. And then I, as his parent, I need to help him to understand that he's safe. And so with Shay, because of the dysregulation in his behaviors, the only way that I found to create that safety for him was actually through something that I got Rob to do with me when I felt unsafe, which was hold me tight backwards. Like, I had my back to his chest. And so now, when Shay is getting to that point, I will, sit on between my legs. He won't want to do it generally, but I'll hold him kind of firmly and say, you know, I love you and you're safe and you can have all of these big feelings. I just can't let you break the house, and I can't let you hit me, and I can't let you whatever. I don't even worry about saying that much of what I can't let him do, but I just allow him to, kick and scream and do whatever he needs while I have him held, firmly in my arms. And he allows and fights against all the emotion, and he allows all the big emotions in him out so that he doesn't wreck the house, or so that he's not kicking me. Because that's where the problem was I didn't want to restrain him, because that's in I guess conscious parenting. It's like, you're not meant to restrain a child. But I would get more aggressive and angry, because I felt helpless. I felt helpless to stop him breaking things. I felt helpless to stop him from hurting someone else or whatever. So that was one thing. And that has helped. And I said that to Fran, and she was like, that's, absolutely perfect. She said, honestly, I wouldn't give you, there's nothing I could give you that's any better than that, if they're at that dysregulation, whatever. Or else we call it the cuddly blanket. We put a cuddly, soft blanket around him and wrap his arms in it so that he couldn't punch me or kick me or whatever. And I would just keep on telling him I love him, that he's safe. The other thing that I do with the boys, because the other massive trigger for me is when the boys are fighting, and it was just a school holiday, so that's really hard. And so for me, with the boys, what I started saying to them was, I have a lock on both doors, both bedrooms. And so what I started saying to the boys was, you know, if you start to notice that you're getting angry or that you want to hit each other, I'm going to need you to run down to your room and lock the door so that you get separation from your brother before you hit him. If you can't do that, that's okay. I'm going to separate you both and put you both in your rooms with some toys and you can have some separate time. And, you know, when we talk about boundaries, I find that especially when we have trauma, it's so hard to find where the limit is or where the boundary is, especially when, you know, in the conscious world, it's like you're meant to say to your child, I can't let you hit your brother. I know you want to hit him, but I love you. And then they're kind of magically meant to not hit each other anymore, and it never seems to work. And so, these are just some things that I've been doing that have really helped my trauma and my trauma responses so much. And that's the only reason I want to share them right now, if they can help anyone. Because what I would find was if Bobby and Shay didn't take themselves, or one of them didn't take themselves to the room, then I would say, okay, guys, I can see you're not able to play with each other right now. That's fine. I'm just going to separate you. You can have some separate time and you can have time in your rooms. And generally, they actually started taking themselves down to the room because I put that firm boundary in. I was like, I am not going to stand here while you keep beating each other and I have to get in between you all the time. It takes all of my energy and it takes all of my capacity to stop myself from screaming at you. And so it's your responsibility to take space from your brother. If you are getting to that point where you want to kill him, your responsibility to take space from your brother, lock the door so he can't get at you, and just breathe and come out whenever you want. And if you can't take that responsibility, that's totally fine. I'm your mom. I'm going to help you. I'm going to put you both in your individual rooms and I will lock it from the outside so that you both can have some time to play by yourselves and cool down. And it has made such a difference in how I parent them because I'm less afraid of their outbursts individually because both of them go in either the cuddly blanket, I call it, or the squeeze if they're that dysregulated that they're throwing things and kicking things and whatever, or they go in separate rooms. And they're just two things, or else you can use baby gates if the kids are younger. They're just two things, especially when I know so many of us have more than one child, and fighting is one of the biggest trigger points for a lot of us parents. And when a child has emotions that are so big that they're throwing stuff and spitting and kicking, they're so out of control, that is just one thing that I've used that recently. Bobby, actually, I did it with Bobby, and he hates it. He hates it when I hold him. He hates it. But I just kept on saying to him, I love you so much, and I'm doing this for you because I can't let you throw everything around, but I know that you've got so many big feelings. And by the end of it, he came over afterwards and he gave me a cuddle and he said, thanks, Mom. Thanks so much for doing that. He needed me to be that safe container. He needed me to be that strong leader to hold him and keep him safe from himself, from the enormity of everything he felt inside of himself. And I think that that's what was missing at Daycare for Shay. He felt so dysregulated in the chaos of the environment and in everything that was going on within his ears and his nose and his throat, and obviously the separation, that he just was exhibiting all of these behaviors that the people saw as severe red flags. Is he getting abused at home? Is there something going on? But yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I guess I don't know. I don't know if anyone will get much out of this because I feel like I've been so scattered today.
No, that's great, Ollie. What I don't understand is if Bobby's going into his room and you're locking the door from the outside, how can he get out when he wants to get out?
Oh, no. That's if I have to put in the boundary. So I give them the choice. They go in themselves when they're getting really dysregulated, then if I'll say to them, guys, or if I see one of them especially, so I'll say, Bobby, I can see you're getting really angry, darling. Do you want to go down to the room, lock the door so that you're away from Shay? And then sometimes he'll go down and do it himself. But if the both of them are so heightened that they just can't stop hitting each other and they can't stop beating each other, then I'll say to them, okay, guys, if you can't take yourself down to the room, then I'm going to have to take you down to the room and I'm going to lock the door from the outside so that you have time to cool down. And then I open the door again a few minutes later. But it's that they know that there is a boundary, because if I just put them in there, they just walk straight back out again if they're at that state of dysregulation, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes
So, and I always have, I don't say it's a punishment. I say this is actually for you because you two are hurting each other. And I know you don't like it when you're hurting each other. Neither of you are feeling safe right now. And I can't co-regulate with one, because then what happens is Shay will come over and kick him while I'm trying to co-regulate with Bobby. And so when I have the two of them, I can't co-regulate with the two of them. And so then I give them the choice. Either they walk down to the room themselves, lock themselves in and just breathe, and then they come out within, 2 minutes. Or if I'm happy to help them with that, but if I'm helping them with that, then I'm either going to lock the door or I give them the option. I'll say, I won't lock the door, but I don't want you to come out. And if you do come out, then I'll have to lock the door. And then if they come out, I'll say, okay, I see you're really struggling. I'm just going to lock the door for a few minutes. But again, I just see how they're feeling. Like if I feel like they're scared and they need me, that's grand, I'm there. But most of the time, they just need space from each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Anything else that you want to talk about before we finish up today?
I guess the only thing other thing that I'd like to say is, I don't want people to think that I've got it all sorted, because I do not. Even when I say that, like, oh,
I don't think it sounds like you've got it all sorted.
Great. Because like sometimes I feel like when you listen to people and it's like, oh yeah, but they knew what to do, and they she knew that that her son was struggling, or that it was going to be okay. I didn't know that it was going to be okay. I want people to know that. I want people to know that during this, there was so much doubt and uncertainty. There was so many times I was terrified that I ruined Shay and that he's going to be a delinquent and that he's going to be fucked up for the rest of his life or whatever. But I guess it's just always trying to zoom out and seeing the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's really it.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Well, have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you.
Give a big kiss and a hug to Shay for me and to Bobby when he gets home from school.
I will. Oh, Jackie was so cute, actually. So I given the both of them phones, right? And they or old phones, and they're taking photos and videos. And so Bobby took a photo of you. Remember yesterday you were on the phone yesterday and video
Oh
call?
yeah.
Bobby took a photo of you, with his own like phone, like whatever. And today, this morning, both of them were like, "Oh, we want to make memories. So let's go and I want to take photos of us eating our breakfast and going outside." And then so Bobby was going through his phone of all the pictures that he took, and he was like, "I'm gonna delete this one, Mom, because I don't need this one." And then he was like, "Mom, this one," and it was the picture of you. He was like, "I'm gonna keep this one forever because I Auntie Jackie, and like this is my favorite one." Oh my god!
That's so adorable.
Yeah. So for anyone out there that wants entertainment for your kids, take out your old phone and have no internet hooked up to it, and let them make videos and pictures and make memories. My boys are absolutely loving it, and it is endless hours of time and entertainment.
Excellent. Okay, sis. Chat to you later. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you haven't done so already, please join our Facebook group, Let Me Be Free, The Wounded Inner Child, and post either anonymously or not what's going on for you in your world. We'd also be delighted if you would share this podcast or the Facebook group with one person who you think would benefit from the information. Be along, Mahaguf. Have a beautiful day.